pour m'avoir invité ici aujourd'hui, de vous adresser. Mon ami Dr. Liu m'avait dit que je peux discuter un peu le rôle des États-Unis dans le monde. Et pour moi, c'est dans le monde aujourd'hui parce que je ne connais pas l'histoire des États-Unis des années 20 et 40 très bien, sauf des livres. Je voudrais vous dire aussi que je suis diplomate américaine. Évidemment, je ne suis pas francophonique, mais je parle arabe et le cantonais. J'ai passé la plupart de mon carrière en Chine et au Moyen-Orient. J'ai été chef de bureau d'Asie du Sud aux États-Unis dans le département d'État. Je viens des États-Unis pour prendre ce poste. J'ai été chef de policy pour les affaires des femmes mondiales. C'était un nouveau bureau de secrétaire Clinton. Et je m'intéresse beaucoup avec la France aujourd'hui, avec la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, parce que j'ai beaucoup d'admiration pour les affaires commémoratives de Deuxième Guerre. Mais aujourd'hui, je voudrais simplement discuter un peu les États-Unis dans le 21e siècle. Si je peux, parce que je peux peut-être mieux expliquer mes positions en anglais qu'en français. Vous pouvez me poser des questions en français si vous voulez. Et je ne sais pas si vous préférez que je suis ici, je reste là-bas. Oui? Ok. Parce que je veux être à l'aise. C'est une petite groupe des très intellectuels adultes. Et je veux être bien compris. Je veux... I don't want to impress you. I want to discuss with you. As the American Consul General here in the south of France, Corsica and Monaco, I travel widely in my consular district. I represent the United States in all of these areas. In my travels, I've had occasion to visit Americans in hospitals. I've actually had the occasion to visit hospitals with the Secret Service, planning for senior level visits. I have had a number of Americans close to death and some people who did die. I've had their families come here and tell me that they could not have been more pleased with the service, with the humanity, with the professionalism of the people in the hospitals here in France. And I can tell you as an American, for an American to tell me that, that's a great, great compliment to you. You know that people in the United States think that the idea of socialized medicine means it's a much lower quality, and they are very impressed, as am I, with the high quality and the great service that you offer not only French people, but even we visitors to your country. So first I wanted to start by saying thank you, because I know the work you do, and I'm not sure you get lots of thanks while you're in your offices. My friend Dr. Liu has suggested that you might be interested in what I believe is the role of the United States in the world today. And I base my judgments not only on my past service, but I do keep in touch with Washington and on policy issues as the representative to southern France, but also to Monaco. I'm going to begin with what I take as a given in the world today. Our world is in a great state of change. Our leaders are charting a path through what is a very difficult, dangerous, and tumultuous time. A flu in China can become an epidemic in New York today. A protest in Tunisia can spark a light that reverberates through the Middle East. When a housing bubble bursts in California, the markets in Asia and Europe can become destabilized. The world is changing with a velocity that is breathtaking. Technology and globalization have made our countries, all of us, and our communities more and more interdependent. Both citizens and non-state actors, including non-governmental organizations, corporations, criminal and terrorist groups are increasingly able to influence international and domestic affairs, for better and for worse. We face challenges that are cross-cutting, which no one nation can expect to solve alone. So how are we dealing with this new world? The United States must increasingly change how it operates globally. We must achieve our objectives by doing more in an economic climate where we have less funding to support our long-term objectives. To do this, we seek to build coalitions, to work with established and new groups of like-minded countries to achieve our goals. In the past 3 years, this administration has placed an emphasis on global leadership, knowing that it was going to take more than military solutions to accomplish our objectives. We have identified 3 strategic areas that we're going to pursue ardently in the coming years. Strategic priorities are and continue to be Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, although we're going to be following them with different levels of aid and diplomatic assistance as opposed to military assistance throughout the future. We have geographic priorities, which have been outlined by the Secretary of State as the Asia-Pacific relationship and continuing to be involved in the Arab world. And we have an emphasis on economic statecraft, which is combining the economic tools of power with diplomacy to try to bring more prosperity and development to our world. We need to be sure that we are using every possible approach, sometimes breaking down traditional relationships, engaging not just with governments, but with citizens, finding new private sector partners, harnessing market forces to solve some of the strategic problems we face, leading by example, bringing people together to support universal rights and values, and then standing with them as they do so in their own countries. We employ what has come to be known as smart power in dealing with leadership challenges. That means to make sure that our diplomats, our soldiers, our friends, and allies are listening and talking with one another in making decisions together. We're putting more emphasis on diplomacy, which is the preferred course of action. A concrete example is the multidimensional diplomacy we employ in dealing with Iran. Building and holding an international coalition to pressure and isolate Iran has forced Iran's leaders to return to the negotiating table. President Obama said in September at the United Nations, America wants to resolve the issue of Iran's nuclear program through diplomacy, and we believe that there is still time and space to do so. But that time is not unlimited. We respect the right of nations to access peaceful nuclear power, but one of the purposes of the United Nations is to see that we harness that power for peace. The American willingness to engage demonstrates good faith. The willingness to listen shows flexibility. Our willingness to hammer out solutions which are acceptable to those beyond the usual decision makers is paying off, not just with China and Russia, but with other rising powers like India, Turkey, South Africa, Indonesia, and Brazil, where intensive diplomacy is essential. Aligning U.S. interests with these rising, influential nations is not always easy. As we look at the situation in Syria, we see how difficult it can be. We are trying to find better ways to work through transformation. The rise of new powers may be a result of American leadership that engendered global stability since the end of World War II. Today, a strong America is working with new powers in an international system designed to prevent conflict. But we continually ask ourselves, how can we do this better? Last year, when citizens took to the streets in Tunisia, Egypt, Yemen, and Libya, demanding their dignity, human rights, and freedom, those protests captivated their countries and us. We saw the beginning, and when I say we, I believe that France feels this way too. We saw the beginning of responsiveness and accountability in Egypt's transition. While in Libya, Gaddafi's response was violence and brutal force. The Libyan people and the Arab League, for the first time together, asked for the international community's support. We responded, putting together a broad coalition led by NATO with a mandate from the UN Security Council. Again, for the first time, forces of the Arab League called for action, and its members participated alongside NATO. Without high-level American leadership, this coalition would not have come to be, nor would it have stayed together. As President Obama said to the United Nations General Assembly this year, and I quote him, "Let us remember that this is a season of progress. For the first time in decades, Tunisians, Egyptians, and Libyans voted for new leaders in elections deemed to be credible, competitive, and fair. This democratic spirit has not been restricted to the Arab world. Over the past year, we've seen peaceful transitions of power in Malawi and Senegal, and a new president in Somalia. In Burma, a president has freed political prisoners and opened a closed society. A courageous dissident has been elected to parliament, and people are looking forward to further reform. Around the globe, people are making their voices heard, insisting on their innate dignity and their right to determine their future. Just as we cannot solve every problem in the world, the United States has not and will not seek to dictate the outcome of democratic transitions abroad. We do not expect other nations to agree with us on every issue, but I do believe that this is the obligation of all leaders in all countries to speak out forcefully against violence and extremism." And again, that concludes President Obama's statement. But I think it is powerful that the president of the country respects the rights and the dignity of other people and acknowledges we will not determine the outcome, but we will try to influence it by giving those forces that respect democracy, human rights, dignity, individual choices, and the right of an individual to change their government, by giving those people our support in these countries. We are building coalitions and global challenges, including working with the IMF and other international financial institutions to manage the international financial crisis. The world has to come together to meet economic challenges and to broaden prosperity. Through the G20, we are partnering with emerging countries to stay on the path to economic recovery. We and our partners are working now to support emerging democracies and to promote open, transparent governance globally. America is pursuing a development agenda which fuels growth and breaks dependency, and we're working with African leaders to help feed their people. We're working globally as well to establish partnerships and alliances to combat corruption, human trafficking, money laundering, and drug trafficking. We're working with public and private partners to eliminate hunger and to improve child and maternal care. The United States has a strong commitment to assist women in taking their rightful places in their societies, their economies, and their political systems. We're working to promote the rights of all people to have full equality wherever they live. Our place as the United States in the 21st century is to continue to lead in today's world, to seek support and consensus, to find the governments, institutions, and organizations to partner in the enormous tasks ahead of all of us and to promote democracy, dignity, and human progress. I realize that I haven't explained in detail what all of these words mean, but I would be happy to do so. It's just that I didn't want to talk at you. I would look forward to speaking with you. Thank you very much.